Matthew 8:18 to 22. When Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other side of the lake. Then a teacher of the law came to him and said, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus replied, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." Another disciple said to him, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus told him, "Follow me and let the dead bury their dead."
If you are new with us today, welcome. We're so glad you are here. My name is Blaine Boyd. I'm a pastor here with Redeemer Church of Blaine, and this is where we gather every Friday, whether in this room or another room in this hotel, and we gather as followers of Jesus. Right? We've heard that. That's something we use in the Christian world. We call ourselves followers of Jesus. But have we ever take a step back and wonder, well, what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? What does it mean to follow Jesus? What does it mean to follow anything? Well, I think it's worth us looking at, because as we study Matthew, one of the things we see is that as Jesus calls people to himself, his preferred way, his preferred command or his preferred invitation to us is simply follow me. We saw that in Matthew 4 when Jesus goes and he calls Peter and he calls Andrew and he calls James and John. His invitation to them was simple: follow me. And we're going to see that when we get to Levi in chapter 9, that his invitation to Levi, the tax collector, is very simple: follow me. We get to the rich young man in chapter 19. Jesus' command is simple. His invitation is simple: follow me. So what does it mean for us who profess to follow Jesus? What does it mean to follow him? What does that command, what does that invitation mean to us? And I think it's important for us to look at, because we live in a time where the concept of follow has become very casual. If we think of in the greater society, in the world, how do we use the term follow? What does follow mean in this world? Well, the first thing I think we may think of is social media, right? How many followers do you have on Facebook? How many followers do you have on Twitter and on Instagram? And it's a very casual kind of following. You may follow people you never even met. All you have to do is push a button on a screen and you're following. It's a very casual kind of thing. I was thinking in my own life of the way that I use the term following. And the way that I probably use it most is I follow sports teams. If you were to ask me if I'm a fan of NBA basketball, I'd say, well, I follow the Oklahoma City Thunder. But it's a very casual kind of following. It's been over 2 years. I have not seen the Oklahoma City Thunder play a basketball game. I haven't watched them on TV. When I say I follow, means I every now and then will check the internet and see how they're doing. Are they winning? Are they losing? Who on the team is playing well? That's what we call following. I think the fan club for Manchester United, for you football fans, the website is We Follow Man U. That's the way we talk about follow in this very casual way. And so is that what Jesus is calling us to, is a casual following relationship? I think we're going to see today in our text in Matthew 8:18 through 22 that Jesus is not interested in casual fans. He's interested in fully committed followers. He's not interested in casual fans, but a fully committed follower of him. And we first see this in verse 18. That as Jesus sees the crowds gathering around him, as he sees his fans coming to him, he gave orders to go to the other side. This is the same thing we saw him doing in chapter 4, if you remember that. As the crowd gathers around him, as he's performing miracles and healings, and the crowd gathers, what does he do? Well, in chapter 4, he withdraws up to a mountain with his disciples. And now he's going to cross over to the other side of the lake with his disciples. Jesus is not interested in gathering a crowd of casual fans. He wants to know who among that crowd of casual fans are willing to become committed followers of him. And so we're going to see that. We're going to see these two really short conversations are going to picture for us what it means to be a fully committed follower of Jesus Christ. What does it mean to follow him? And first we're going to see this what I'll call the over-eager scribe. And then we're going to see the under-eager disciple. So these two conversations, the over-eager scribe and the under-eager disciple. And we're going to see that Jesus is only interested in fully committed followers. The scribe, verse 19, and a scribe came up to him and said, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." To set the setting here a little bit. So Jesus, right, has been teaching. He did the Sermon on the Mount. He came into Capernaum. He's doing healings. He's doing miracles, right? So he taught as one who had authority, chapter 7, verse 28, and then he demonstrates that same authority. And so people are taking note that this is a special man. This is not like the others who are around. This is not like the other scribes and rabbis and teachers who are around. This man is very unique. And so a scribe, who is a teacher in the law himself, comes up to Jesus. And scribes were used to describe basically anyone who was from a student to the most seasoned teachers of the law. So if you are in the profession of teaching the law, whether very beginning or the end of your life, then you were considered a scribe. And so we probably think of a up-and-coming teacher of the law who recognizes that this Jesus is teaching something different. That this is a guy who has some authority, and I want to learn from him. We don't know exactly what his motivation was. Was it his career? Was it status? Was he trying to figure out how he too could perform the miracles and signs that Jesus was performing? We don't know, but what he does is he approaches Jesus and he says, "I will follow you wherever you go." It seems like he's pretty committed, right? Wherever you go. But Jesus seems to see in this scribe a certain naivety, a certain ignorance to what the call to follow Christ looks like. He seems to think that the scribe is naive to the sacrifice. Nest, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Jesus is saying, and he presents the sacrifice in the terms of his own sacrifice, that Jesus has come into this world as a homeless man. Right? Foxes have homes. They've got the holes in the ground. And birds have homes. They have the nest that they build. But the Son of Man has no home. He has nowhere to lay his head. Well, first, to understand this, let me take a step back and talk about the Son of Man briefly. This is the first time in Matthew we've seen the Son of Man. And this is going to be Jesus' preferred way of referring to himself. It's his preferred messianic title, if you will. This is a very new title in ancient Judaism. The people before did not talk about the Son of Man. It's very new with Jesus. And the beauty of what the Son of Man does is it marries this idea of divine authority and human humility and lowliness. So it marries divine authority with human humility. We saw that last week, right? When we have Jesus, the one who is high and lifted up, the one who has all divine authority. He's cleansing lepers. He's healing paralytics. He's casting out fevers. He's casting out demons. Yet we look at him and he's the suffering servant who is crushed for our iniquities. High and lifted up, divine authority, yet human humility and lowliness, crushed for our iniquities. And that's what this title, Son of Man, carries with it. In one sense, it reflects Daniel 7. Rather, the one like the Son of Man came to the Ancient of Days. So when as the Son of Man comes to God, and what is he given? He's given dominion over everything. Divine authority, Son of Man. But at the same time, we have Psalm 8, where who is man that God is mindful of him? The Son of Man that God would care for him. Human lowliness. That saying God is so far above and great. Like who are we that he would consider us and our plight in this world? The Son of Man. And Jesus is that place where divine authority, him as God, and human humility and lowliness, him as human, come together. So the Son of Man, Jesus himself, has no home. But Jesus himself is living a life of homelessness. Now this is probably homeless in a different way than we're thinking. I don't know what homeless is in your culture, but when I think of homeless from the United States, I'm usually thinking of the person that's holding the sign that says, I need food. They're destitute, they're poor, they're begging, those kinds of things. That's what we kind of stereotype homelessness with. And it's the most poor, the most destitute of our people. And that's not Jesus. We don't have any reason to believe that Jesus lived a life of utter poverty. He often had a place to stay. He was often invited to people's tables where he ate. Judas, one of his disciples, carried the money bag for him and the disciples, so they had money. So we don't want to create Jesus as some sort of impoverished person and make a theology of poverty out of him. So what we're saying when we say he lived a life of homelessness was he was not rooted to this world. He was not rooted to this world. His mission was not to come establish himself a home here. He was not attempting to establish himself a country here or a throne here in this world, because his home and his throne is in heaven. He came not to establish himself a home here, but he came on the mission of slowly moving toward the cross. He came specifically that he may go to the cross and make a way for us to join him in his home. He's not establishing himself ultimately a reign here. He's establishing himself an eternal reign in heaven. The cross is that place where us who are distant from God, who are separated from God and all the inheritance of heaven, that the very reason Jesus came into this world was to proclaim that kingdom was there, and then to go to the cross and die for us, that we may live with him and reign with him for eternity. And what he's saying to the scribe here is I am not rooted to this world, and if you want to follow me, you're not going to be rooted to this world either. That you're going to give up your home to follow me and go where I go. And what would the scribe have heard when Jesus said, you're going to be homeless and uprooted in this world? Well, a home in that culture, in that context, what did it offer to a first century Jew? One, it would have offered some comfort. It was a place you would retreat to, just as we see a home as a place to go and to relax and to rest. So it's a place of comfort. It's nice to have a bed in a home and not be laying on the ground or sleeping in a boat, as we see Jesus do in the next story. It offers security. It offers security from robbers or from other things, from the storms. It offers status and identity. A lot of these homes in Jewish culture were passed down from generation to generation. And the home you lived in represented not only where you were in society, but it connected you to your heritage and to your inheritance and the fathers that came before you. And so the scribe is being told by Jesus, what I need you to do is if you want to follow me, leave your comfort, leave your security, leave your status, leave your identity, and come along. It's hard. He's disclaiming what it is to follow him. He's warning him of the sacrifice that's required. I remember when my last legal job I had when I was a lawyer, and I went in for my first interview. In that first interview, I sat with my mentor, and he told me everything that was wonderful about this law firm. It's going to be great for your career, and your career's going to skyrocket, and here's your partnership plan, and all these kinds of things. And so then I went in for my second interview, and the mood completely changed. Really, really, really hard. And he made it very clear that the office was open on Saturday. He said, there's going to be times where you have to travel, and unexpected, we're going to call you up and put you on a plane to somewhere that you have hours that you have to have. And he went over and over and all this sacrifice that I was going to have to make, that it was all this positive. It was just me getting. And that's the same. Wherever you want me to go. And Jesus says, just a second. I need you to know the sacrifice that I'm calling you to. I need to know what you're giving up. Well, what about us? Right, what about calls us to follow? We're no longer actually going out and traveling with him to city and follow him to Jerusalem where he would die on the cross. But at the same time, this world, a call to follow Jesus is a call to give up our 13 talks about Christians who do not have a city because we wait for this. Those sojourners and exiles who are waiting for our home to come. And so just calls us here in the 21st century to give up our roots to comfort that we seek in this world. To give up the security, whether that's physical security, our identity in this world, to take on the status and identity of him in heaven. For ourselves an inheritance and treasures here, but laid up in heaven. It's not that he's telling us to give up our comfort, our security, our status, and identity. He's saying to place it in him, in the eternal, instead of this world. And so what does that mean for us? What does it mean to be uprooted? Right? What does that look like? What is it that if Jesus came to you and said, give up this, would you really struggle to give up? What if Jesus came to you and said, you know what, you'll never be married, you'll be single the rest of your life if you follow me? Would you say, okay? Okay. What if he said, you'll never have a job that you like or enjoy or are fulfilled with, but if you follow me? Would you say, okay? What if he said, you never have financial security if you follow me? Would you say, okay? You know, one of the things I want to make clear, though, is just because we're uprooted from this world, that we're not grounded, we don't put our hope and our trust in the things of this world, it doesn't mean we don't care for this world. Right? We're not just kind of buying our time until we get to leave this world. In fact, Jesus was not rooted to this world, yet he had the deepest care for this world. That God so loved the world that he sent Jesus, and Jesus so loved the world that he went to the cross. That those people who are living in this world, who are us, would have a way to join him in his home in eternity. So us too, it's not that we stop caring about this world, we just care in a radically different way. We no longer care about creating a name for ourselves and financial security for ourselves and these kinds of things, but we care about seeing that others hear the good news of Jesus Christ, that others would hear of the chance to make themselves a home in heaven. Fully committed followers give up their roots in this world to follow Jesus. Are we willing to do that? The overeager scribe. And now we look and we change and we look at the undereager disciple. So we went from one who was saying, I'll go wherever you go. And Jesus kind of puts this, whoa, slow down. Slow down. Have you really thought about this? Have you counted the cost? Do you know what the sacrifice is of that? And now we turn to one who is the disciple who says, just I will follow you, but wait. I'm not quite ready. Verse 21, another disciple said to him, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. Lord, let me first go and bury my father. Now, the disciple here, and also it says another disciple, so it's referring to the teacher as well as a disciple. And it's best not to understand this as the disciples, like the 12 disciples that Jesus had, that we consider the disciples now. We don't know who these people were. They're not identified. Maybe they were. Maybe they're a part of that 12. But disciples also used in Scripture to talk about generally those people who went and listened to and were taught by Jesus. So sometimes disciples used of those who are in the crowd, and then often it's used of those who have separated themselves from the crowd, those who are truly following. And so probably disciple here is referring to those who are in the crowd, maybe heard the Sermon on the Mount, maybe sat under that kind of a teaching. But anyway, so he comes to Jesus and he says, Lord, I'm not quite ready. I want to follow you, but I'm not quite ready. What do I need to do first? I need to go sort my affairs. I need to bury my father. Now, there's two ways we can understand bury father here. One is just very plain on the text. You would see that, well, the father's died, right? And so he needs to go actually do the burial ceremony and procedure and put him in the ground, so to speak. And this could be. Many people read that text like that, and that could be. I find it unlikely, and the reason I find it unlikely that that's what we're looking at here is that in Jewish culture, the tradition was when someone died, they had to be buried within that 24-hour period. So it was a very all-consuming thing. Like the grieving process would start. People would start coming over. A lot of times they would hire professional grievers to come, and they would join in, and the family would gather, and then they would move to bury the person who had passed away that same day. So it seems somewhat unlikely that someone who is in the midst of that, their father has just died, and they've started this mourning procedure, and they need to start arranging for the burial ceremony, would then be out kind of listening and following and sitting with Jesus. So could it happen? Certainly could have happened. But I find it unlikely. I find it more likely that we're referring to someone who has a father who is aged, who is up there in years and who maybe has a couple of years to live. And so he's saying, hey, let me go back, be with my elderly father. Let me care for him in his old age. Let me bury him. Let me sort his affairs. And then I'll be ready. Then I'll be ready to commit fully to you. Then I'll be ready to follow you wherever you go. But first let me care for my father. And how does Jesus respond? Jesus said to him, follow me. Leave the dead to bury their dead. There is no time for spiritual procrastination. There is no time to delay in following Jesus. Jesus is saying there are plenty of spiritually dead. I think we are best to understand that the first dead here, to leave the dead as those who are spiritually dead, those who are not attempting to follow Jesus, those who have no desire to follow Jesus. There's plenty of those. There's plenty of those people out there, so let them take care of burying the physical dead. Let them take care of sorting affairs and putting the father, his affairs in order. You who are spiritually alive, come with me. So let those who do not want to follow me, let them bury it. But you who have seen me, who know I'm worthy of following, come now. There's no space in our life for spiritual procrastination. In other words, those who have been given the eyes to see and the ears to hear the beauty of who Christ is will not wait to follow him, will not delay following him, will not put that off to a more convenient time after they've assorted their affairs. They follow now. I think we've probably all done this, or in danger of doing this in some way. Have you ever had a particular thing in your life, a sin that you struggle with, that you just kind of, you spiritually procrastinate on? And I will deal with that later. Like I know that my gambling problem is wrong, and I'm going to stop just as soon as I break even. As soon as I get my money back, that's when I'm going to start. That's when I'm going to start following and be obedient to Christ. I'm going to stop hitting my wife. I'm going to stop doing that. I know it's wrong. I'm going to stop doing that as soon as she stops provoking me. Right? I'm going to, maybe if you're a single person or you're like, man, I know that sexual purity is something I should be pursuing, and I'm going to pursue that. I'm going to stop looking at pornography and all these other things as soon as I get married. That's when that's going to happen. Or maybe, I know that, God, you call me to give generously and sacrificially of the money that I make, and I'm going to do that as soon as I get my next raise. Or we push off our obedience, and we spiritually procrastinate in a way. We're delaying what it means to follow Jesus to a time that is more convenient to us. Maybe you're like, yeah, Blaine, but those are all examples of like sin. And here we have a guy who just wants to go like bury his father, right? Like he just wants to honor his father and mother. That's a command, 10 Commandments, honor thy father and mother. The Bible teaches us to honor them. And you think of 1 Timothy 5, it actually calls on families to take care of the widows in their family. Like providing for family is a good thing. And I would agree with you. I would say that even good things can distract us from the best things, which is Jesus Christ himself. We can be in danger of letting very good things, very biblical things, distract us from the best thing, which is following Jesus Christ. It goes something like this. You're in high school, right? And you're like, I heard the gospel, and that's good stuff. This is Jesus guy. I need to be about him. And as soon as I get into university, and I get all these exams sorted, that I'm going to start following him then. And then you get into university and you go, oh man, this is a little harder than I thought. I don't have as much time as I thought I did. As soon as I get out of university, I am going to start following Jesus seriously. I'm going to commit myself to him then. And then you get out and you're like, oh wow, I need to get my job in order. I need to get my career, a foundation under me. And you're like, as soon as I get my career going, I'm going to be very serious about following Jesus. And then you meet someone, you get married, and you're like, man, as soon as I figure out this marriage thing, I'm going to start following Jesus. Then you have little kids, and you're like, we all know with little kids you can't follow Jesus, right? And so you're like, oh man, well, as soon as my kids grow up, then I'm going to start really serving and loving and following Jesus well. That's when it's going to happen. And then your kids grow up, and you're like, oh, I got to get these kids into university. But as soon as my kids get into university and I get them sorted and they're out of the house and I have some freedom, then I'm going to start following Jesus. And then you're like, oh man, I got to retire soon. I just need to get my finances in order. And so, man, as soon as I get my finances in order and retire, then I'm really going to start following Jesus. And then you die. Okay, I don't know if it's exactly that abrupt, but all of those things are good things. They're caring about our education is a good thing to do, and caring about our families are a good thing to do. And God calls us to work to his glory, so we want to be good workers for him. And so work is a good thing to do, but they can all become excuses. All of those good things can become excuses to put off the best thing, which is following Jesus Christ. We just procrastinate, and we say, you know what? I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to obedience, and I'm going to get to following. It's coming. And Jesus is saying, fully committed followers follow now. Fully committed followers follow now. They do not delay. And friends, what I encourage us is no matter what the good thing is in your life, that you're putting off following Jesus fully, whatever that good thing is, a family or work or finances or education, whatever that is going to seem incredibly trivial when we stand before Jesus in judgment. When we have to account for ourselves, no matter what that good thing is, if we've done it instead of following Jesus, it's going to seem so trivial. I love the story of Johann Rahl, trivial procrastination. Johann was a German commander with a bunch of troops that the British had paid to help fight the Revolutionary War against the Americans. And the famous battle of George Washington coming across the River Delaware to fight Johann Rahl and his troops. Well, the night that George Washington was bringing his troops across the river, Johann Rahl received a note from a spy. And that note said, Johann, there's people coming across the river. If you go get them now, you can win. And of course, George Washington coming across the river is in a very vulnerable position. And so if Johann would have read the note and took the note's advice, and he would have gone, and he could have fought, and he would have won, it could have changed the course of history. But what was Johann Rahl doing? Well, he was playing a game of cards. And he said, you know what, as soon as done with this game of cards, then we'll look at that. And so he takes the note, he sticks it in his pocket, and after George Washington and his troop had wiped out Johann Rahl and his troops, and he was dead there on the battlefield, they found that note in his pocket. And you wonder how trivial did that game of cards seem at the end of that battle? Yet that's what he put off reading that note for. And I think to the coming end times, when Jesus comes back in all of his glory, and every good thing that we put off following Jesus for is going to be more trivial than that game of cards. It's going to seem that silly that we chose our job over following Jesus, or that we chose putting together some financial security over following Jesus, or even that we chose our families over following Jesus. One of the things I love about this short little text here is that it doesn't actually answer the question we all kind of want to know. We don't know if the scribe and the disciple actually followed Jesus. We don't know if the scribe heard this and said, you know what, it's worth it. That's a radical sacrifice to uproot myself in this world and become homeless with you, but Jesus, you're worth it, I'll do it. And we don't know if the disciple said, you know what, you're right, I won't procrastinate, I'll do it now, I'm going with you. Well, we don't know if that's what they said, but because that's not the point of this text. The point of this text is to ask, are we ready to follow? When we look at what Jesus is calling us to, when he's calling us to uprootedness, and when he's calling us to fully commit now and not procrastinate anymore, are we ready to do that? Are we ready to fully commit to following Jesus Christ? I think back to the Oklahoma City Thunder. I was talking about the first of the sermon and the way I was a fan of them and a follower of them. When I was living in Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma City Thunder had different levels of commitment, right? So those who really wanted to commit, really wanted to be a part, they really wanted to follow, they could get season tickets, and they get the extra package where they meet with the players and go to the special dinners, and that's like the A package, right? That's the A commitment. But there's others who, they wanted to see all the games, they wanted the season tickets, but they didn't care about all the extra stuff, and so that was like the B package. And then there's some people who are like, I like the games. I don't want to go to all the games, so I'll go to 5 or 6 of them. And so they're like the C package. They get a little bit of that. And then there's the people that just I just want to go to one game maybe. I just want to commit to one game. And so you can buy the D package, whatever it was. But in that sense, they were offered the level of commitment that they wanted. They could go A or B or C or D package. Well, friends, following Christ, there is no B and C and D package. It's fully commit or don't commit at all. And so if you've been going through this Christian life and thinking that yourself is a follower and telling people that you are a follower of Christ, yet you're hanging out in this B and this C and this D package, that you're following Jesus when it's convenient, you're following Jesus when he doesn't get in the way of what you're seeking in this world, hear Jesus. Hear Jesus in this text saying, fully commit. Hear Jesus say that I don't want you as a casual fan, an occasional pop-in. I want a fully committed follower. Friends, if that's you today, I encourage you to upgrade to that A package. Surrender it all and follow now because he's worth it. Let's pray. Father, we know that the life that Jesus gives us is worth it, yet we know that we do not have the strength within ourselves to follow fully as he calls us to do. So, Lord, we pray that you would help us. Lord, that you would help us uproot from this world and set our gaze on the world to come, on the home that we will have with Jesus. Lord, we pray that you will help us stop delaying in our following, that we will put away our spiritual procrastination, Lord, and that we will seek and follow Jesus fully today. Amen.